Welcome back everyone, it is Mike from ManaHoarders bringing you a Commander deck tech for a brand new Commander spoiled from March of the Machine, Drana and Linvala. You can cast this Commander for 1, 2 white and a black. You get a 3/4 legendary Vampire Angel. Drana and Linvala have Flying and Vigilance. Activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can be activated. And Drana and Linvala has all activated abilities of all creatures your opponents control. We can spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate those abilities. This Commander is a nice control piece on its own, but we do have some other control cards we did include. Now we are also running a life gain and life drain sub-theme, so as the game goes on and our life total increases, victory will slowly slip away from all of our opponents. Before we dive into the deck, let's go over a few key points. First up, the final price for this build came in at $87.05. This does not include the price of our Commander since we are so early in the spoiler season, but does include the other 99 cards, including all of our lands. Now, do bear in mind, some of these prices will vary greatly depending on the quality of the cards you purchase, the vendor you use, and a variety of other factors. And while I have you here, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the awesome content we have coming to you in the future. Now let's go ahead and dive into the deck. First up are our artifacts. Arcane Signet taps to give us one color of our Commander's color identity. Commander Sphere does much of the same, but we can sacrifice it to draw a card. Glass Cast Heart. Whenever one or more vampires we control attack, we get a blood token. We can pay a black and tap it and pay 1 life to get a 1/1 white and black vampire token with lifelink. We can pay 2 and tap it and sacrifice the heart and 13 blood tokens. Each opponent will lose 13 life and we will gain 13 life. Mind Stone taps for a colorless. We can also pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice it to draw. Potion of Healing. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we draw a card, and we can pay a white, tap it and sacrifice it to gain 3 life. Pristine Talisman. Whenever we tap it for a colorless mana, we also gain 1 life. Soul Ring taps for 2 colorless mana. And Tablet of the Guilds. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we choose 2 colors. Whenever we cast a spell, if it's at least one of the chosen colors, we gain 1 life for each of the chosen colors that it is. Next up are our creatures. We do have some legends helping out our Commander. Brina the Demagogue. Whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another one of your opponents, the attacking player draws a card and you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. Combal Console of Allocation. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, they lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. Nil's Disciplined Enforcer. At the beginning of your end step, for each player, put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature that player controls. Also, each creature with 1 or more counters on it can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless its controller pays X, where X is the number of counters on that creature. Tavash Gloom Summoner has lifelink, and at the beginning of our end step, if we gain life this turn, we can pay X life, where X is the amount of life we gained. If we do, we get an XX Black Demon creature token with flying. And Vito Thorn of the Dusk Rose. Whenever we gain life, target opponent loses that much life, and for 3 and 2 black, creatures we control gain lifelink until the end of the turn. And for our not-so-legendary creatures, a personal favorite of mine, Archfiend of Depravity, has flying. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player chooses up to 2 creatures he or she controls and sacrifices the rest. Attended Healer. Whenever we gain life for the first time each turn, we get a 1/1 cat token. Bloodseeker. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, we can have that player lose 1 life. Cliffhaven Vampire. Whenever we gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. Creeping Bloodsucker. At the beginning of our upkeep, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and we gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. Death Greeter. Whenever another creature dies, we can gain 1 life. Drana's Emissary. At the beginning of our upkeep, each opponent loses 1, and we gain 1. Healer's Hawk has flying and lifelink. Hushwing Griff has flash, flying, and creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Indulging Patrician has flying and lifelink, and at the beginning of our end step, if we gained 3 or more life this turn, each opponent loses 3 life. Kinjali's Sunwing. Creatures our opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Marauding Blight Priest. Whenever we gain life, each opponent loses 1. Markov Purifier has lifelink. At the beginning of our end step, if we gain life this turn, we can pay 2, and if we do, we can draw. Nyx Fleece Ram. At the beginning of our upkeep, we gain 1 life. Soul Warden. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, including your opponent's creatures, we can gain a life. Spawn of Mayhem has flying and trample. At the beginning of our upkeep, it deals 1 damage to each player. Then if we have 10 or less life, we can put a 1/1 counter on Spawn of Mayhem. Sunscorch Regent. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, it gets a 1/1 counter and we gain 1. Suture Priest. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we gain a life, and whenever a creature enters under an opponent's control, we can have them lose a life. Tallyman of Nurgle has lifelink. At the beginning of our end step, if a creature died this turn, we can draw a card and lose a life. If 7 or more creatures died, instead we draw 7 cards and lose 7 life. Tocatli Honor Guard, creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Vampire Cutthroat has Skulk and lifelink. Vault Scourge has flying and lifelink. Voice of the Blessed. Whenever we gain life, it can put a +1/+1 counter on it. If it has 4 or more 1/1 counters, it has flying and vigilance, and as long as it has 10 or more counters on it, it has indestructible. Windborn Muse, creatures can't attack us unless their controller pays 2 for each creature that's attacking. Moving on to our enchantments, Ashes of the Abhorrent. Players can't cast spells from graveyards or activate abilities of cards in graveyards, and whenever a creature dies, we can gain a life. Aura of Silence, artifact and enchantment spells our opponents cast cost 2 more to cast. Cleric class, if we would gain a life, instead we gain that much life +1. Whenever we gain life, we can put a 1/1 counter on target creature, and when it reaches level 3, we can return target creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield and we gain life equal to its toughness. Dawn of Hope, whenever we gain life, we can pay 2, and if we do, we draw a card. It is also a good way to pump out some 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that have lifelink. Feast on the Fallen, at the beginning of each upkeep, if an opponent lost life last turn, we can put a 1/1 counter on target creature we control. Ghostly Prison, creatures can't attack us unless their controller pays 2 for each of them. Oversold Cemetery, at the beginning of our upkeep, if we have 4 or more creature cards in our graveyard, we can return one of them from our graveyard to our hand. Paladin class, spells our opponents cast during our turn cost 1 more to cast, creatures we control get +1/+1, and whenever we attack until end of turn, target attacking creature gets +1/+1 for each other attacking creature and gains double strike. Pillory of the Sleepless, the enchanted creature can't attack or block, and it gains, at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life. Porphyry Nodes, at the beginning of our upkeep, we destroy the creature with the least toughness. It can't be regenerated, and if 2 or more creatures are tied for the least power, you choose one of them. Whenever there are no creatures on the battlefield, we do have to sacrifice it. Sanguine Bond, whenever we gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Underworld Connections, we enchant a land, we can tap it and pay 1 life to draw a card. And Vampiric Rites, we pay 1 in the black and sacrifice a creature to gain 1 life and draw a card. Moving on to our instants, Costly Plunder. As an additional cost, we will have to sacrifice an artifact or a creature to draw 2 cards. Dark Ritual adds 3 black mana. Doomblade can destroy target non-black creature. Go for the Throat destroys target non-artifact creature. Make a Stand, creatures we control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible. Reckoner's Bargain, we have to sacrifice an artifact or a creature, we gain life equal to that sacrificed permanent's mana value, and we draw 2. Revitalize, we gain 3 life and draw a card. Succumb to Temptation, we draw 2 and lose 2. Unbreakable Formation, creatures we control gain indestructible until the end of the turn. And Village Rites, as an additional cost, we will sacrifice a creature to draw 2 cards. Moving on to our sorceries, we have Diabolic Tutor. We can search our library for a card and put into our hand and then shuffle. Read the Bones, we can scry 2, draw 2, and lose 2 life. Sanctify can destroy target artifact or enchantment, and we gain 3. And Sign in Blood, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. And last but not least is our mana base. We are keeping things very basic with 18 basic swamps and 17 basic plains. And just like that, we've reached the end of this Commander deck tech for Drana and Linvala. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what commanders you are most excited to get your hands on once we get March of the Machine. I really appreciate all of your support.